Joshua, the 20th chapter, the first through the sixth verses. Then the Lord spoke to Joshua, tell the Israelites, select your cities of refuge, as I instructed you through Moses, so that a person who kills someone unintentionally or accidentally may flee there. These will be your refuge from the avenger of blood. When someone flees to one of these cities, stands at the entrance of the city gate, and states his case before the elders of that city, they are to bring him into the city, give him a place to live among them. And if the avenger of blood pursues him, they must not hand the one who committed manslaughter over to him, for he killed his neighbor accidentally and did not hate him beforehand. He is to stay in that city until he stands trial before the assembly, and until the death of the high priest serving at that time. Then the one who committed manslaughter may return home to his own city from which he fled. The cities of refuge, protection from the avenger of blood. We will study this 20th chapter, first through the sixth verse, in three phases. God commands the appointment of 6 cities of refuge. Number 2, entrance into the city of refuge. Number 3, protection against the avenger of blood. God commanded that the city's appointment be fulfilled, which he commanded through Moses. This was done in the book of Exodus and in the book of Deuteronomy. We will be reading from Numbers 35 in the 6th verse. Now among the cities which you will give to the Levites, you shall appoint 6 cities of refuge, to which a manslayer may flee, and to these ye shall add 42 cities. The intent of God is that the cities were to protect one who killed another by accident, without plan, with whose case proved manslaughter, not murder. Listen, God is concerned that murderers be punished, especially in the days of ancient Israel. We'll be reading from Genesis, the 9th chapter, and the 6th verse. Listen, whoever sheds man's blood, by man, his blood shall be shed. For in the likeness of God he made man. Listen, when murderers go unpunished, when murderers go unpunished. It pollutes a land. This is found in Numbers, the 35th chapter, and the 33rd verse. You must not pollute the land you live in. Murder is what pollutes the land. The land where a murder is committed can never make peace with the Lord, except through the death of the murderer. Numbers 35th chapter and the 33rd verse. For the murderer has killed that which is made in the likeness, has killed that which is the reflection, that which is the representation of God. Keep this in your mind. Genesis 9th chapter and the 6th verse. Entrance, number 2, to the city. The custom is that at the gate of the city is where the elders were stationed. When someone fleeing from an avenger of blood came to a city, they were to state their case to the elders at the gate or at the entrance of the city. Now I want you to listen to this very carefully. Now, keep this in consideration, that the city of Refuge were not arranged so that a murderer could avoid justice. The city of Refuge were not created by the God of law so that a murderer could avoid justice. In the justice of God required, the one who murdered another and was proven by the evidence of more than 2 witnesses. Numbers, the 35th chapter and the 30th verse, was to be jurisdictionally executed. The purpose of the city was designed to save someone guilty of manslaughter, but innocent of murder. When his case was judged and he was found guilty of manslaughter, but not murder, he could find protection within the walls of the city. When he was found guilty of killing his neighbor unintentionally or accidentally, but not planned and not out of human emotion. But he would have to stay there and live in the city to enjoy that protection. He would have to remain in the city, live in the city to obtain that protection. Now listen, the avenger of blood was not a wild animal or wild angry man, but it was a representation or representative of God and of the victim's family who have suffered from the murderer. This person was to carry out God's justice, according to Numbers 35th chapter and the 19th verse. God take killing another man intentionally serious. The avenger of blood, according to Numbers, the 35th chapter and the 19th verse, the avenger of blood shall put the murderer to death. The murderer. When the avenger comes upon the murderer, the avenger shall put the murderer to death. Now listen, now you gotta read it all the way out. After the case has been tried and the suspect is proven guilty, justice demands that by court or by the representative of God, which is called the avenger of blood, and the representative of the victim's family, capital punishment was to be carried out. The manslayer or the murderer, listen to this, could flee to the city of refuge. The one who is guilty of killing his brother by accident, the one who was guilty of killing his brother intentionally, could flee to the city of refuge. And the avenger had no legal standing to slay either one. But listen, got to carry it on out. Until proven guilty or innocent. Now, if he was proven guilty of murder, he would be delivered, the elders would deliver him into the hands of the avenger of blood, the one who was a representative by God. God allowed this practice, who represented a family, which they said was normally a male figure, who was selected to carry out justice when a family member had been murdered. He was to be delivered over into the hands of the avenger of blood, and the avenger of blood had the choice to take him, if y'all allow me to say it, to the local sheriff, and then he would be legally executed. But if the sheriff said that his brother, and he didn't want to kill him, then the avenger of blood, according to the will of God, because God is against murder. Keep in your mind Genesis 9th chapter and the 6th verse. He was to be delivered into his hands, and he could carry out the punishment. When his case was judged, he was found safe. He could find protection when he was found as a manslayer, someone who killed a man, but it was done unintentionally or accidentally. He could find protection within the walls of the city, but he would have to stay there. He couldn't leave to go visit his wife. He couldn't leave to go visit his children. Anyone who knows about the legal system know what I'm talking about. And he had to live in the city. He had to dwell. He can't be coming in and out. He had to live in the city to enjoy the protection. Protection from the representative of God and the murderous person's family. Joshua, the 20th chapter and the 6th verse, says, they are to stay in the city until they have stood trial, or until the death of the high priest who is serving at that time. Then the manslayer may go back to their own home, the town from which they fled, and the avenger of blood cannot touch them. After they have been proven to be manslaughter, death of an individual by accident, but yet there is still a death. And the avenger of blood was still seeking, according to his family's feelings, justice. But when he was proven guilty of manslaughter, he can stay in the city and he had to live there. And the only way that he can be dismissed is when the high priest who was in office of the time of his sentence died. When that high priest died, and most of the time the high priest retired at the age of 50. When that high priest died, then he could be released and he can go back home, and then he didn't have to worry about nobody taking his life. He didn't have to look over his shoulder, because as we were saying this time, he has paid or fulfilled his sentence. Now listen, number 4. These 6 cities were distributed across Israel's territory, because at that time, killing of men intentionally or unintentionally was on a rampage. These 6 cities were distributed across Israel's territory. No matter where one was in Israel, no matter where he lived in the land of Israel, there were not far from them the city of refuge. The city of refuge, in normal circumstances, the city was from each direction about a day's journey. Plus, God commanded that they keep the roads proper, so that the manslayer or the one who had not been found guilty of murder yet can flee. So they kept the roads clear so that there may be a safe and quickly getting to this place of protection. You'll find this in Joshua, the 20th chapter, in the 9th verse. These were the cities appointed for all the children of Israel and for the stranger who dwelt among them. God's justice applied to all without partiality, making protection for both Jews and Gentiles by providing a place of protection from the avenger of blood. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble, that by the unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we may have strong consolation who have fled for refuge, to lay hold of the hope set before us. Listen, the only difference that can be found in the city of refuge doctrine and the gospel of Jesus Christ doctrine. Can I say that one more time? The only difference that can be found in the city of refuge teaching and the gospel of Jesus Christ teaching is that in Christ the guilty are set free. In the city of refuge, the guilty of murder were turned over to be executed. But in finding refuge in Christ, the guilty is set free. For whom the Son sets free is free indeed. We thank God for his grace. We thank God for his mercy. We ask that you will continue to keep looking at Joshua, the 20th chapter. Keep that in your heart and keep that in your mind. And we will be going over to Joshua, the 23rd chapter. But we're going to be laying aside a little bit, preparing for our union session. But thanks be to God that the grace that is in Christ Jesus sets us free from what we are guilty of and causes the avenger of blood, which is called the wrath of God, to do as it was done in the days of Moses. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. Hope to see you at the union session. May God bless you. May God keep you. Thank God for refuge in Christ.